We're just trying to make awareness of a lot of women being missing these days, you know.
I understand.
I know you've been seeing it.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
If you got a wife, you got kids, and you got people out here just snatching them up.
Well, you guys are doing a wonderful job, man. I appreciate all y'all's help.
Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ, bless Captain Palu with this United in Christ. What we out here doing today, we out here in the neighborhoods trying to find our people, all right? What you see above us is the missing people flyer. In our neighborhoods, in Oklahoma by itself, is 121 reported cases of people that's being taken for sex trafficking. So there's no news about it on the internet. There's no way to find out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take matters in our own hands to make sure that we're going into the neighborhoods and searching for our people. All right? So that's what we're doing. We out here campaigning for the missing people campaign to make sure that we put in our brick in our community so we can bring our people home. All right? Most of the people that's being taken is blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in our communities. So we must do something about it. And I challenge you to do something about it as well. All right? Shalom, Most High in Christ bless.
Israel united in Christ. We are not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group. Israel United in Christ is a non-violent, Bible-based movement. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race, ethnicity, or gender. We advise that if anyone hears or knows of any plots to cause harm to anyone or to break the laws of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat as stated in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 1.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Israel, Most High in Christ, bless. Welcome to another live edition of Precept upon Precept. We are your hosts. I'm Captain Shem, and to my immediate right,
Officer Matthew.
to my left,
Officer Mikael.
to the far left,
Officer Solomon.
and to the far right.
Officer Micah.
So with today's show, we want to reintroduce you to our format. We have kind of an exciting, creative way that we're doing that, kind of like an integration with the news. So we're going to start off first tonight with what's happening in the world. Remember the scriptures say, let's not be ignorant in any matter. So Officer Micah with the Watchman Report, take us away.
Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ, bless. I'm going to give you a couple of current events. Let's jump right into it. All right. In California, fires have torched more land than 5 New York cities. That's 1.1 billion acres have been torched. Firemen are working 24 hours around the clock trying to get that contained. But due to lack of weather and dry, scorched earth, the fire is just getting worse. All right, next article, please. As some of you may know, in Wisconsin, 2 police officers who shot Jacob Blake have been placed on administrative leave. This incident occurred. He was in front of 3 children. One's 3, one's 5, and one's 8. So just keep those children in mind because that's a traumatic event that they had to witness. So just definitely keep that family in your thoughts and just hope our people repent. All right. Next article, please. Hurricane Katrina made landfall. Now, Hurricane Laura, I'm sorry, I'm thinking Katrina because it was Katrina was a 5. This one was a category 4, but it weakened to a 1. It destroyed a lot. It left a lot of flooding, wind damage. Right now, the death toll is still rising. So just just check on our family out there in those areas. Make sure. I think it hit Leesville, and it did a little damage. So we definitely want to make sure that our family's safe out there. All right, next article, please. In world news, China fired aircraft carrier killer because the U.S. refuses. I guess they can't understand what a no-fly zone is. I don't know how they messed that up when the White House clearly has a no-fly zone, but for some reason that order did not trickle down to the Air Force. So China has fired a aircraft carrier missile at the U.S. because they flew into no-fly zone during a China naval drill. So they were doing some recon, and they decided to fly into an area that's not theirs. So that's definitely something we want to keep our eyes on, and that concludes the report. I'm Officer Micah. Shalom. Most High in Christ bless.
So shalom, shalom. Welcome back, Officer Mike with the Watchman News report. And listen, we are in Louisiana, and thank the Lord. Oh, this camera. Thank the Lord that our heart goes out, our minds go out to the families in Lake Charles area and all the other areas immediately affected. If that had been on track, Officer Mike was thinking about Katrina. That could have been on par with like a Hurricane Katrina. So thank the Lord we were missed. We had a couple of families in IUIC that were out there, and they were safe. They evacuated, and everyone else, we got reports back that a couple of power outages, but we're okay down here in Louisiana. So, hey, y'all might want to think about getting some generators. You might want to think about portable generators and think about getting perishables and things like that, those of you on the coast. So tonight's show is a continuation of should the 12 tribes of Israel, the Hispanics, blacks, Native, should we vote in this United States of America? All right. So with that, hey, we want to start off first. We're going to jump right into it. We don't have a lot of time because I believe Officer Mikael, we want to get a perspective of this. There's a very popular guy now in the media who had made some pretty profound statements about anti-Semitism, and I think you got something you want to get into about that. We can jump into that because this guy's pretty noticeable in the media.
Yeah, I think we got a video with Ice Cube talking about anti-Semitism and voting and what. I think he's actually speaking on the Democratic National Convention. So let's pull that up. Ice Cube talks about the Democratic National Convention. Y'all excuse some of Ice Cube's language. You know, he's frustrated right now, as many of us are.
So he drops a couple F-bombs in this.
Yeah.
Put your kids in the other room, like Deacon Asa said. Put your kids in the room. If he's gonna drop a couple of creative four-letter words from time to time, you know. So give him a couple seconds to move the kids out. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, over the last 4 days, the Democratic National Party held a convention. A lot of people, you know what I mean, getting up there and talking, and, you know, everybody really, you know, eating it up, you know, throwing their hands in the air like they just don't care down there. So, it's you know, what I didn't hear is what's in it for us? What's in it for the black community besides the same old thing we've been getting from these parties? What's in it for us for real? You know, I didn't hear anybody mention a contract with Black America. And I don't know why, because it's one of the most comprehensive reform documents that's come about in a long time that could really address the problem.
Hey, could y'all stop it right there? So he talks about the contract with Black America has one of the most comprehensive reform documents that could, reform means to change, right? So let's get the real contract with Black America. Can we get Deuteronomy 4 and 44? Because this is the contract that we need to uphold. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 44.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 44. And this is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel.
So the laws of God is the contract with Black America that Black America needs to keep. The reason we're at the bottom of society, the reason we're in a country that doesn't love us, the reason we're subject to people that hate us is because we didn't keep the contract with God. So that's the contract we need to be focused on. You can continue playing.
The way it look, they don't have a plan. Everybody's, talking about get Trump out, get Trump out, get Trump out. If you vote, that's going to happen on the first day. So now what? Trump out, now what? What? What do we get in the first 100 days? That's what we're trying to figure out. What do we actually get that they could give us overnight like that? They just pulled $3 trillion out their ass and gave it to their friends. That's American taxpayer money. That's your money that they just gave away. And then there's 42% of Black businesses closing. None of that money. Where's our fucking bailout? Where's the bailout? Not the PPP loan that they didn't give us. Where's the bailout? I don't want to hear about deficit. I don't want to hear about what our generations gonna have to pay. Because if we don't have shit, they ain't gonna have shit anyway to pay nothing. So we gotta start something right now.
Stop. Bruh, can I get Lamentations 4:17? Maybe
all praises.
Maybe we don't get it as a people yet. This ain't our system.
Nope.
This they system. This they country. This they money. This is their system. We not meant to get nothing out this system but a behind whooping that we were supposed to get from the Lord and repent from the sins that we was doing. That's what we're supposed to get out of this. This is what America is supposed to bring to us. It's supposed to bring to our remembrance that we are the sons and daughters of the living God, and we got to repent of our sins. That's what it's supposed to do. Read that.
The book of Lamentations, chapter 4, verse 17. As for us, our eyes has yet failed for our vain help.
The Bible calls it a vain help because it's unprofitable help. Our eyes are failing for our vain help. We looking for another stimulus check and they giving money to their friends. That's what they supposed to do. Read.
In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us.
We watch for a nation that don't do nothing for us. He looking for what the black people going to get in the first 100 days. The same stuff you've been getting for the last 365 days times 100. Ain't nothing going to change. Our people got to wake up. Him especially. Good beard, by the way.
All praise. Yeah, I was looking at it.
I like the beard, by the way. But, bro, we got to all the way come to the knowledge of God. Not halfway, not half-stepping, not depending on this system. We got to completely and utterly go straight to the laws of God. We've tried everything else.
Yep.
If I may, could I get a precept, please?
What you got?
First Maccabees chapter 8, verse 15, 16. Because our brother Cube, Lord's will, he's watching, and he gets this. Right. Because Officer Matthew, you bringing it out. This is going to flow right with what the show is going into.
First Maccabees chapter 8.
Verse 15.
The book of First Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 15. Moreover, how they made for themselves a senate house.
The Grecians, the Greeks, the so-called Romans, Americans, they made a senate house for themselves. Read on.
Wherein 320 men sat in council daily, counseling a way.
Consulting a way.
consulting always for the people,
Uh-huh.
to the end they might be well ordered.
Read verse 16, please.
And they committed their government to one man every year.
Our government.
And they committed their government to one man every year,
Read on.
who ruled over all their country,
Come on.
and that all were obedient to that one.
They set up their constitution, their country, for their benefit. Like what Ice Cube was just saying. They put out $3 million and just gave it to their people.
Right.
But they want to give us a bit. We'll give you a loan.
So look, real quick, and you brought this video up, and I really thought he was joking around when he said that. So there really is the contract with Black America. I
Yes.
thought he was just talking that street talk. So I want to just bring one thing that lines with Officer Matthew and Lamentations. That's the spirit right there, because the whole, if you could summarize the right to vote and all that, that would be the scripture. Right then, along with Proverbs 3:31, right? Check this out. If someone could read the contract, this is a real. We found it online. The contract with Black America, right? It's the first sentence. This destroys it. Somebody read that.
Yes, sir. As citizens and lawmakers both, we are joining to demand the contract with Black America.
So stop. First and foremost, the problem with the Negroes that wrote this, because Black people wrote it, is that they think that they're citizens. So they're saying, look, we're equal to master. Why do you keep bopping us over the head, master? Why can't we get treated like you, master? That's what they're saying. And Ice Cube, look, if you watching this, brother, let me tell you something. You was hard as hell back in the 90s with NWA and all of that. You came out, you was hard body. Don't eat the swine because it don't fly. You was all saying that hardcore stuff. Brother, you need to come learn this truth, man. Come learn this truth at IUIC, brother. You can sit from a distance in the background. Okay, we're going to guide you up because you're not supposed to put your trust in this, Q. You know what I mean? You're doing some big things out there, speaking up for our people, dropping a little knowledge out there. But look, brother, humble down, brother. No disrespect. Humble down. Come learn. Come learn from a distance. Learn the whole truth, brother. You know what I mean? Because we see you out there, Q. Read on.
Be addressed immediately to finally create the more perfect union.
So we'll never be unified in this system. Because why? We was always divided. We was brought over on cargo slave ships, right? We was served our oppressor for over 360-something years, some crazy number of years. So when that, so the whole, we don't even have to read any more than this first paragraph. The Negroes that wrote this think that they're equal to their oppressor, and they're demanding, excuse me, you can't demand a damn thing, okay? And we're going to get into later on why, and Officer Matthew said the other day, we brought up a very good point, why are there Black Masons? If there's white Masons, do they call themselves the white Masons? So later on in the show, why is there a Black caucus? Why is there a white caucus? No, the real caucus is white people. You're the Black caucus. So everything we're going to bring out tonight with history, and that's why I'm glad you brought this is heavy, because Cube is frustrated, but he's quoting something that he believes that he's equal to the oppressor. Come on, brother, wake up, man. So listen, y'all read this on your own. I think it's a couple-page document, and they have give me Romans chapter 10. I want to show you something, because the Black Caucus, Ice Cube's passion here, and a lot of our people, they all are very zealous for the right to be equal here. They want to make change. They're just going about it the complete wrong way. They don't understand there's a God in heaven that is a fleet of angels that's bringing judgment and chains and rulership for the Israelites, chains for the enemies. Read that where they have a zeal of God. I think it's Romans 10 and 2. Thank you.
The book of Romans, chapter 10 and verse 2. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God.
So Paul during this time was speaking to the Israelites that was scattered around the greater Mediterranean or Asia Minor. And a lot of them brothers were passionate about the things they were doing. But guess what? they were not doing it according to the laws of God. The same spirits are back today in the same Gentile state of mind. Look, Ice Cube, I think he know he is. You know he Israelite, right? You know he Israel, right? He got the beard, all that. But the thing where Ice Cube's not bringing it home to y'all is that you can't trust in the system. He talking about how he probably behind the scenes, the white man, the devil, all of that. But he's not lining himself to actually bring the people what they need. So Ice Cube, sit back in the back, keep making your movies, keep doing the things you saying, but come learn the whole truth, brother, so you can be, that voice you have is very powerful, all right? Very powerful. Read on.
But not according to knowledge.
But it's not according to knowledge. That's why the contract with Black America, I don't care if it's 2 pages or 222 pages, is they open up with this, it's all wrong. Everything else you're going to read about it, you're going to demand from your enemy? Shoot, you lucky you still alive, all right? So that was it. I want to add to that. I know that video just sparked that.
Hey, can we get Isaiah chapter 12? Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 12.
Hey, you know what's crazy about that too? Ice Cube once said, y'all remember Higher Learning? When he was giving that speech to Omar Epps, and he was like, you think one behind whooping gonna equal up to 430 years of slavery?
Right.
Bro,
Yes.
we behind enemy lines, bro.
Right.
He gotta understand, we behind enemy lines. It don't matter what we do.
Right. That is crazy. Read that.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 30 and verse 12. Wherefore, thus said the Holy One of Israel, despise this word.
So despise the word of God because they have not fully repented and come into this truth. Read.
And trust in oppression.
And do what?
And trust in oppression.
Read that part again.
And trust in oppression.
They trust in this oppression. This is an oppressive system. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, that is 2 wings of the same eagle that has been oppressing you since you got off the slave ship.
That's right.
They not designed to save you. They are here for your punishment. Esau, the so-called white man, is God's belt, and he is used to whoop your behind.
That's right.
That's all I got.
That's heavy. And you know what? And look, y'all check out Ice Cube. You pay attention to what Ice Cube's talking about in the media. He is using wisdom in how he's dealing. And like I believe that the brother is starting to be enlightened and starting to wake up. And I pray and hope for Cube and all the other brothers who have notoriety and power in the media that you use that behind the scenes, like Bishop say, behind the scenes. You don't got to come full out. You're going to get a lot of work done behind the scenes. Ice Cube, start making movies about the Maccabees. Start making movies about the prophets.
That's right.
Use your power to make black movies about the real Jews. Man, you know how powerful be Cube if you made the Judas Maccabee and you got some of the brothers in Hollywood and you made that thing, bro. Listen, bro, you ain't got to even come. You ain't even got to call them Maccabees. You could just put stuff on, and we gonna know what it is, and you gonna bring honor to our people. All right, Solomon, you had something about some Edomite guy. I saw the article you posted. Didn't you post that? Was that you?
About the Edomite?
There was a guy that he won a $250 million. Was that you? Yeah.
No.
Well, listen, put a button there real quick. I want to bring something out real quick. Get me the article. I want to go to the grandfather clause. I was reading this last week because last week last Thursday, we went into about how we found out that in 1870 during Reconstruction, we had many black men in positions of power, right? In the Senate, Congress, all levels of political structure. And up until about the early 1900s, they systematically got every last one of us out of any significant position, right? So I started to research more. I said, well, how is that possible? What did they do that made them be able to legally? So what they did is they created things called, there was a grandfather clause. This is some wicked ass stuff we're about to read about. I'll pull it up where it's right after Solomon's article. I want teachers, www.loc.gov. So voting rights for African Americans. Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let's go ahead and let's read the first paragraph. It's kind of this is the Library of Congress. So when you search for sources, the Library of Congress is a lot of times we do this because we want the gainsayers and the naysayers who watch this. The first thing they say is in the background, these you know what don't know nothing. No, we quoting from the Library of Congress, you big dummy. Okay, so you smart as you want to be, right? Read.
Voting rights for African Americans. A terrible and bloody civil war freed enslaved Americans.
Okay.
The 14th Amendment to the Constitution, 1868, granted African Americans the rights of citizenship.
Now, we also know that, remember, they took 3 enforcement acts just for them to enforce the things that they wrote for the 14th and 15th Amendment, right? Check this out. Read on.
However, this did not always translate into the ability to vote.
Well, for a while, 80% of black men in the South were voting. We had huge turnouts, all right? And then so Esau saw the rise of our people and said, you know what? We have to systematically create laws to suppress and overthrow them. Literally and that's what we saw, the pig laws we saw. What's the other things we saw?
The pig laws. They had voter suppression.
Yes, voter suppression, literacy tests, poll taxes. Check this out. This right here, I heard about this, but I never really got into it. When you really read about the mind of Esau, this guy is he's something special. Read on.
Black voters were systematically turned away from state polling places. To combat this problem, Congress passed the 15th Amendment in 1870. It says, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged.
Stop. So we read this last week. So the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States, meaning federal government, or by any state on account of race, color, previous. So we read about that last week. So let's review. Read on.
Yet, states still found ways to circumvent the Constitution and prevent blacks from voting.
So here's this why you know that the federal government under the leadership of Esau never wanted this to come true, because if he wanted to, he could send his federal task force out to literally shut down the states and remove power from them if needs be. That was a law, right? Check what they did. So they put voting literacy test on the brothers. Now, a lot of brothers started to learn to read, but you think a whole society just came out of slavery can just read, right? It takes time, right? You put then you had them read like the Oklahoma Constitution, like the federal Constitution with it's written by lawyers and it's hard to read in general. And if they couldn't read that hard text to read, you couldn't vote. So watch this wicked ass stuff. Read on.
Poll taxes, literacy tests, fraud, and intimidation all turned African Americans away from the polls.
So all of that was done. We reviewed most of that last week. But there's something deeper than that. It goes, and it's called the Grandfather Clause or the Grandfather Act. And I said, what is this all about? Because you hear people say, well, I'm grandfathered in. You buy a house, there's a stair that doesn't have a rail. It's made out of stone. That's grandfathered in, they say. You got a furnace that's not vented right, but you bought a house. It's grandfathered in, right? There's a deep meaning behind that. Because we use that term, you don't even know I didn't know what it meant. This is heavy. Esau is this guy right here, he got a special punishment come for him from the Most High. Read on.
Until the Supreme Court struck it down in 1915.
Mm-hmm.
Many states used the grandfather clause to keep descendants of slaves out of elections.
So what does that mean? To keep use the grandfather clause to keep black people, us, out of elections. Let's see what it means. Read on.
The clause said you could not vote unless your grandfather
Now stop real quick. We're going to read it slow because I had to read it like 4 times to read it again.
The clause said you could not vote.
Stop. A clause was the states passing what in their eyes was a law. So they wrote this down. They just wasn't like, hey, Chuck, hey, we're going to make sure that. No, they had a system in place at the state government, which we read before. So then why didn't the federal government, with their own law, go in and shut it all down? You send the feds in and you shut it down. Right? Read on.
The clause said you could not vote unless your grandfather had voted.
So wait a minute. These bastards. So if in 1864, every black American, and there was some free men of color, but they didn't have any votes because they didn't have any real rights. So if your grandfather didn't vote, you couldn't vote. So what does that mean for the so-called Negro in America? Read it again.
The clause said you could not vote unless your grandfather had voted.
So not your father, not your pops. So you could vote at, I think it's 20 or 21 or 18, right? So they said your grandfather had to have voted, right? Read on.
An impossibility for most people whose ancestors were slaves.
Right. Not an absolute, it's impossible. Maybe somebody's father, super young, maybe. Read on.
This unfair treatment was debated on the street, in Congress, and in the press. A full 50 years after the...
Wait, stop. How the hell can you debate that? Because you have a law that says the United States will not... go back down real quick. I'm harboring on this because I want you to see the absolute hypocrisy of this system. It's all BS. That's why when you black people out there who actually think with your Democratic Party or your Joe Biden, whoever, even Trump, whoever, that you actually matter, black lives don't matter. Well, the Israelite life matters. They don't matter to these people. Our people are so simple. Read that part again where it says the right of the citizens of the United States up top,
Yes,
please.
sir. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States.
Stop right there. Go back down where you're at, where it says this was debated. What are they talking about?
This unfair treatment was debated on the street.
Okay, so it was, wait a minute. So I get it. You on the street, it's being debated on the street. I could understand that, right? Scuttlebutt around the neighborhood, right? Let's see where else it was debated at.
In the Congress?
Stop. How the hell could it be debated in Congress at a federal level when the law tells them that the U.S. cannot go against the U.S. in denying black people the right? How the hell is that possible? They're telling you that this slavery continued.
Hey, Cap.
It's amazing. Y'all got to see this for what it really is.
They said the grandfather clause says that you couldn't vote if your grandfather didn't vote, which makes it impossible for people that were slaves to vote. But in that very statement where it says the right of the citizens, could you read that for me? The right of the citizens. I want you to read the whole thing.
Where's that?
The right of the citizens of the
Okay,
United
got it.
States, all the way at the top.
Yes, sir. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude.
Read that last part.
Bam.
Or previous condition of servitude.
Esau is a hypocrite. Esau is a hypocrite. Right there, they just contradicted their damn self.
Can we get Isaiah 10:1?
Yes.
Because looking at this, and by the way, Cap, I did pull up one of the literacy tests if we wanted to read some of the questions. I was reading some of the questions. Some of these questions, they're trick questions. They're trick questions. So imagine this. If they got a literacy test that they could just off the cuff come up with that will confuse black people and make it to where white people could say, oh, you didn't pass this test, so you can't vote. Don't you think they'll do that in the educational system?
Yes.
Read that, Isaiah 10:1.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 10 and verse 1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees.
They decree unrighteous decree. A literacy test, the grandfather clause, that's an unrighteous decree. You want to know why? Because in the 15th Amendment, it says that you cannot be stopped whether your race, your color, or previous condition of servitude. And in the same breath, they say if your grandfather was a slave, you can't vote.
Right.
That's a loophole. They find loopholes in their own stuff. That's how they write it. Read it again.
Woe unto them that decree unrighteousness decrees,
Unrighteous decrees. Read.
and that write grievousness which they have prescribed.
They write grievous. The grandfather's clause was a grievous thing to black people. Because like the article itself said, 50 years prior, we had the right to vote. We bought out last week. How many black people they had in Congress? 2,000?
Yes.
2,000 elected. It was a good number in Congress, but it was 2,000 elected. And you said something heavy, and I know you're in the spirit. You said something heavy. Let me tell you something. It's why you brothers, man, out there, you have to take when you see stuff like this, right? You have to imagine that if you lived during that time, and just imagine what your great grandparents was actually going through when they had we free now. We's free now, and we got to deal with this crap. You gotta take yourself to that level. Now, Officer Matthew said that they would make a literacy test for black people. Well, guess what they did for poor whites? The poor white people didn't have to take none of that. It's going to tell you they didn't have to do none of that. So here you have a disenfranchised people who just got out of slavery, who was banned from legally reading, and some of us were still passing the test. And who have been here ruling for all those years, a lot of them couldn't even read still.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you. If we can real quick, just go back to that. I want to read this part because I'm getting mad. I want the part where the same article. Scroll down real quick. I know we're running low on time. I want to see something real quick. No. I want the part where it talks about what they did for Edomites. It might scroll down a little bit real quick. Okay. Next article, real quick. I'm gonna get it, and we're gonna come back. And I know we got Cornerstone News coming up soon. Grandfather, okay, scroll down real quick. Yes. Matter of fact, just read the whole article, please.
Yes, sir. Grandfather clause, statutory or constitutional device.
Stop. So first of all, it's statutory means law. So it was a state law or a constitutional device enacted by 7 states. How the hell, according to your law, we read before, does not the federal government go shut it down automatically? They're absolute hypocrites. Just like the Isaiah said. They decree an unrighteous decree. Everything, that's why the college electoral vote, everything you see set up is a facade in the system. It's all facade. Matter of fact, Donald Trump is probably the best dog on. He's the devil the Bible speaks of. He's the best thing for you black people out there, better than these liberals. Believe me, I'm not a Republican. I'm telling you right now. But the way that they're spinning things, and he's still the devil, by the way.
Yes, he is.
But read on.
Device enacted by 7 southern states between 1895 and 1910 to deny suffrage to African Americans. It provided that those who had enjoyed the right to vote prior to 1866 or 1867 and their lineal descendants.
If you were white, your lineal descendants, your children, your grandchildren, they had immunity of you. They had voters' immunity. Watch this.
Would be exempt from recently enacted educational, property, or tax requirements for voting.
So these people, they never had to take the reading test. They never had to take pay a tax. They made our people pay a tax to vote. They made or property. So they say you had to be a landowner to vote, right? So these Edomites, they didn't have to read nothing. They didn't have to write nothing. As long as they was white and their grandfather voted from before, none of that mattered to them. Showing you how evil and wicked as hell these people are. Okay? We're going to come back to that. So I know we're getting ready to, Officer Mika, I know you was getting into. So we got a lot more on the show. We could do 3 hours.
Hey, can we get real quick Isaiah 32? Isaiah 32 and we can get straight to the point. 32 and 8. Isaiah 32 and 8. Because it talks about this as a device. that they enacted. Read that.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 32 and verse 8. But the liberal deviseth liberal things.
This is a liberal thing. The grandfather clause was a liberal thing. So all y'all out there that talking about y'all the liberals, y'all jump up to verse 5 real quick for all these people that think they liberals.
Verse 5. The vile person.
The what?
The vile person.
Vile, disgusting, horrible, terrible. Read.
Shall be no more called liberal.
Shall be no more called what?
Called liberal.
A vile person is called liberal. So these are vile people that came up with vile devices.
Hey, can we read that last sentence in the paragraph, Cap? Because the former slaves?
Yes, sir. Because the former slaves had not been granted the franchise until the adoption of the 15th Amendment in 1870.
So slaves didn't get the right to vote until the 1870, read.
Those clauses worked effectively to exclude black people from the vote.
So black people, through Esau's clauses, was able to be excluded from the vote, read.
But assured the franchise to many impoverished and illiterate whites.
That's why the trailer trash Edomites still look down on us.
That's right.
The trailer trash, we can have a brother own a Fortune 500 company. Trailer trash Esau still going to look down on them because they got laws that protect them.
And that's why we have to know our history. That's why we bring the history out. But look, speaking of history, IUIC is making history all over the four corners of the earth. And guess what we got? We're going to lead into Officer Mikael telling you what's happening within IUIC with the Cornerstone News.
Hey, shalom, Israel, shalom. This is Cornerstone News, and I'm your brother, Mikael. And hey, it is no slight to be compared to Four Corners News, so all praises for that. Hey, make sure y'all checking out the Sunday lineup, man. Make sure y'all check out that Sunday radio lineup. It starts with Patient Saints Radio at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then we got Our Hidden History with Deacon Nathan at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we got Raven and Wolves coming in at 2 p.m. And then we got the Power Hour with Captain Yashua coming on at 4 p.m. It's 4 to 6 p.m. It's 2 hours, but it's called the Power Hour. You know, all praises. And then we got in that prime time spot, we got Lions Den Radio. Also, make sure y'all go back and catch Bishop Nathaniel talking about his favorite topic as of late. On the Shout Out Tuesdays, he's talking about the confusion of TD Jakes yet again. And this topic is Solomon and Sheba. That's the topic for Shout Out Tuesdays. Also, make sure y'all, if y'all missed it earlier today, Bishop was live on IUIC Germany going over tithes and offerings. So make sure y'all catch that. That's going to be every Wednesday that he's on IUIC Germany radio. Catch the Bishop again on IUIC Liberia radio every Wednesday as well. If you missed it this Wednesday, you can go back and catch him on Facebook.com, LiberiaPublicRadio.com. Also, watch the Bishop break down prophecy on YouTube of World War III. That's IUIC Germany YouTube page. Man, the Bishop is the hardest working man in Israel. Call him the James Brown of Israel, y'all. With that, that concludes the Cornerstone News.
So, Officer Mikael with Cornerstone News. And you know why it's important we have this format? Because there's so much going on within Israel United in Christ. We need a brother like Officer Mikael to keep us focused. Because when I first came in this truth, all we had is a couple YouTube videos, and we were so happy with that. Nowadays, you got to even schedule. There's so much to you got Daily Bread. You got all the captains that going out 15 minutes with the captains. You got Bishop doing his thing all over the globe. Captain Isaac doing big things. The radio shows. So you got to prioritize now. So this IUIC is doing big things. So all praises for that. Look, so we're going to jump right back into the topic. Should our people vote in this system? Okay, so I want to pull this out. We're going to review the grandfather clause. Officer Matthew brought it. Let's that last part again. Because the former slaves had not been granted.
Because the former slaves have not been granted the franchise until the adoption of the 15th Amendment in 1870.
Stop. So when you hear the word disenfranchisement, a franchise means you're a part of it, right? You're a franchise. If you buy a franchise from McDonald's, you're a part of the corporation, right? So that's where they get the word disenfranchised. So we thought, and that's why it goes back to Ice Cube and the whole document that he quoted. You think you franchised. Negro, you still disenfranchised. You're not part of the corporation. And that's what we got to realize. So everything is set up for the sons and daughters of, in particular, the sons of this man's children. Even the poor ones who have nothing, they still have everything given to them. And that's in law, we see right there. There's another article I want to pull up. In the interest of time, I want to be quick about it. Yes, sir. Let's get the 19th. I want Ginn versus the United States. I'm sorry. Get me African American Registry first, which is, I'm sorry, I should have labeled it. Grandfather Clause enacted, African American Registry. Beautiful. So, Officer Matt mentioned earlier, listen, he said, I actually read some of the literacy tests that they give, right? Don't think that black people just, yeah, they were lost, that we just stood with our freaking foot on our neck. We tried to sue the hell out of these people, okay? And we're going to give an example. There was a lot of lawsuits because that's what Esau tried to make it hard. Because they knew that we could sue them, but the problem is it took years and years and years, and it took money and resources to do that, right? So they said, okay, you want to enact the law? Force us to tell on ourselves. Force us to rule against ourselves. So we're going to read this real quick.
Grandfather Clause enacted.
Kind of small font.
On this date in 1898, the Grandfather Clause was enacted for voting purposes. The Grandfather Clause was a legal or constitutional mechanism passed by 7 southern states during Reconstruction to deny suffrage to black Americans.
Now, let me just say this. Let us remind you that during Reconstruction, we had a significant amount of black men that voted, and we had men with 2,000 positions. So even though all this was going on, we still were getting into Congress, the Senate, local political offices throughout all of this infrastructure. We still had the tenacity. We showed the pictures to the brothers last week. There were slaves. Now they in suits and they look at the dignity on their face. We showed you them men, right? Esau said, we got to turn it up. We can't have these Negroes up in here trying to tell us what to do because that's what was about to happen. But the Most High wasn't going to allow it to happen, though. I'll read on.
It meant those who had enjoyed the right to vote prior to 1867 or their lineal descendants would be exempt from educational, property, and tax requirements for voting.
So the educational component was you had to read, we're going to read in the next article, for Oklahoma, you had to read the Oklahoma Constitution or the set of things that was set up for the for the Oklahoma city government. And it was written and drawn up by attorneys. I don't know those of you who have ever read contract law, who ever read attorney documents. They're very, very hard to read. They're full of a lot of adjectives and nouns you've never heard before. It's a code. So even if you could read, even if you got a bachelor's degree right now, you try to read right now, you're gonna have trouble. You're gonna have problems with it, because they talk in this code. They talk that's why you got Jay-Z. Why he was so good at rapping, the brother used to read the dictionary, and you're like, what the hell he just said? Because the brother used to read the dictionary, right? Read on.
As a result, even if they met all the requirements, they were not allowed to vote.
So this is where, look, and this is why you got to just take the time and allow the anger to sink in. So you had some brothers that was able to actually pass the reading test, the literacy test. They actually had property, and they actually passed to pay the tax. And even when they did all of that, no, nigga, you ain't voting. So everything was set up against our people from the inception. After 1865, nothing changed. They just changed the words around and created loopholes like Officer Matthew had just stated earlier, right? But I'm going to show you this. Read on.
Because the former slaves were not granted the right until the adoption of 70. These clauses worked effectively to exclude blacks from voting and assure the vote of many impoverished and illiterate whites.
Stop. So now, you would think that after 1870, things change, of course, right? So we're going to show you that from 1870 to 1915, which mathematically is 45 years, it took that long for the Supreme Court to rule that it was unconstitutional. But again, we read before, the United States shall not obstruct the United States, that what we read before, showing you that even after almost 50 years later, our people, and that whole time, we was trying to sue the hell out of them. Many lawsuits. This is just one example of a lawsuit. Y'all got to know your history. We were not taking this laying down. Our people have always had the tenacity to fight in every arena to try to scratch and claw ourselves to some sort of justice. We just went about it the wrong way. We went about it the wrong way. But we're going to give some dignity to our people here. Check this, read this. Ginn versus the United States. This is the lawsuit that challenged the grandfather clause to cause it to be struck down, right? So you telling me it took friggin' 45 years for you to rule on that? No, because we had to band together to create an opportunity just to sue these bastards to get them to enforce their own law. This is infuriating. Read on.
Ginn versus United States struck down the grandfather clause in Oklahoma's Voter Registration Act of 1910 because the clause discriminated against blacks and therefore violated the 15th Amendment. The statute required voters to pass a reading test. However, the law exempted all those who were entitled to vote on January 1st, 1866.
Hence, white people did not have to take a reading test. That's what that's saying. We read it before in the other article. Some wicked stuff. Read on.
Just after Civil War ended and before the approval in 1870 of the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed voting rights for all male citizens regardless of race.
Lies, complete hypocrisy. Read on.
As well as their descendants. The law allowed those whose grandfathers were entitled to vote in 1866 to register without passing a literacy test.
Now, so let's get down. We're going to read on where this was now. It got, and by the way, you just don't go and say, hey, I want to go right to the Supreme Court. You just don't do that. There's levels to get to the Supreme Court. So brothers could be suing for 15 years just to get their voice heard in the Supreme Court, right? And it takes money. It takes time. It's public record. So these KKK members could find out by pulling public documents and go and terrorize you. And our people still sued in court despite all that came at us and the domestic terrorism that we suffered at the hands of these demons. And we still tried to sue them in their own courts. Read on.
Uneven application of the law to blacks became an immediate issue. Local voting registration officials interpreted the Voter Registration Act to mean that they could flatly refuse to administer literacy tests to blacks or could impose unreasonable ones. In one instance, officials rejected a college graduate even though there was not the slightest room for doubt as to whether he was entitled to vote. In 1915, the U.S. government, therefore, prosecuted the officials for criminal conspiracy to deny voting rights to black Oklahomians.
So what does that tell you? It wasn't just one. A lot of us say, you know what? How do we beat them? We're going to get our degrees. So there was one brother. It was undeniable that he passed all their tests. If it was one of them that was doing it, we had a whole gang of brothers that was stepping up and doing the same thing. We was challenging them in their own courtrooms. And despite that, getting lynched, getting terrorized, getting threatened by the cake, all of that was happening in that environment. Okay, black codes, all this stuff was going on. We just got out of slavery 45 years ago, right? 50 years ago, right? At that point, it's almost exactly 50 years ago to that date for that year. And we still was challenging them. Y'all come. We come from good stock. That is not. We are not a fearful people. We were just completely misguided. We were completely misguided. And when you see this, you should be proud of your people. Yes, they have a zeal of God. It was not according to knowledge, but black people did not lay down.
Right.
Okay, we stood up in the way that we knew how. All right. Read on. We almost done with this, and we're gonna move on.
In the case of Ginn versus United States, 1915, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed the convictions. Justice Edward White went on to strike down the grandfather clause. He saw the Oklahoma law for what it was, a bald attempt to disenfranchise blacks.
And by the way, just so you know, and you brothers can look this up, I guarantee you, and if I'm wrong, that these bastards that was prosecuted, right? How much jail time did they do?
Right,
How much jail time you actually think that they did? Okay, they probably got a slap on the wrist, probably got some community service, some BS, right? So even in that, and it was a whole bunch. So I wanted to give you an example that Ginn versus the United States, and they didn't file in 1914, and then the next year they get heard. There's a whole, they dragged it out. They made it very, very hard for our people. All right, so and later in the show, I have one more thing to bring out about why other things happen down the line. Why do we have to keep revisiting the right to protect ourselves in a court system? Because it goes back to limitations. You put your trust in someone who never was meant to help you or even assist you in your voting or your citizenship. All garbage. All garbage.
You know, Cap, in line with, you know what I'm saying, everything that we've been talking about this evening, I just received this book in the mail today, The Miseducation of the Negro.
Oh.
Right? Written by Carter G. Woodson. Okay? And knowing that we was going to be doing a show this evening, I wanted to see if there was anything about, you know, the miseducation of the Negro concerning politics. So I was able to find a little something that maybe, you know what I'm saying, if we could bring out.
Bring
You
it
know?
out. Bring it
All
out.
right? So this part right here.
Yep.
Shouldn't have showed him the book.
So this is The Miseducation of the Negro,
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9 on page 30.
Okay. Read this highlighted part, please, sir.
It says, not long ago, a measure was introduced in certain state legislature to have the Constitution of the United States thus printed in school history.
So what they wanted to do was they wanted to take the Constitution and implement it into the history of the schools. You know what I'm saying? The school history classes. Read on.
But when the bill was about to pass, it was killed by someone who made the point that it would never do to have Negroes study the Constitution of the United States.
So what they did was when they found out that, well, if we implement this law, if we pass this law saying that the Constitution can be taught in history class, then guess what? The Negroes will learn this, and we can't have that. Read on.
If the Negroes were granted the opportunity to peruse this document, they might learn to contend for the rights therein granted.
Whoa, wait a minute. So if the Negroes were to learn what these constitutional laws were, then they may feel compelled to try to enforce those laws. Just like those laws with the Gwynn versus the United States.
Yep.
Right? Read on.
And no Negro teacher who gives attention to such matters of the government is tolerated in those backwood districts.
Whoo! So the Negro teachers wouldn't even be tolerated. They didn't even want them teaching that stuff. So was that it on that one?
The teaching of government or the lack of such instruction then must be made to confirm the policy keeping the Negro in his place.
So the Negro is supposed to be kept in their place. I want you to read one more thing. Let's skip over to
Hey, that's
right
crazy
here.
because the more we read, the more laws they change.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, like, they didn't want us to read the Constitution because they were like, oh, they're going to find out their rights. So when we did find out how to read, they just changed the Constitution.
They amended it.
Amended it. All of a
They
sudden, now
amended
it's like 15,000 amendments in the Constitution.
Yep.
right.
This is page 34. It is It is unfortunate, too, that such a large number of Negroes do not know any better than to stake their whole fortune on politics.
So basically, it's letting you know that there's. It's unfortunate that you know what I'm saying. We have a lot of our people that they stake their whole fortune. They die hard Democrats, or they die hard liberals, or they die hard Republicans.
So it's unfortunate that they got a contract for Black America that's not going to get addressed.
Not going to get
that's
addressed.
exactly.
And it mentions that as we read up. Keep reading. Keep reading.
History does not show that any race, especially a minority group, has ever solved any important problem by relying altogether on one thing.
Wow. So basically, nothing has been resolved by relying on politics. Basically, read on.
Certainly not by parking its political strength on one side of the fence because of empty promises.
Whoo! By empty promises. So I just wanted to bring that out in lieu of, you know what I'm saying, what was already brought out.
That's a
Hey,
powerful
we need some
book.
bombs dropped or something,
heavy
man.
Yeah,
right
what's
there.
up with Akiem back there, man? Thank you,
We
tech
don't got the,
team.
we don't got the sound guy.
See that?
know,
Hey,
but
man, we trying to be like Four Corners
Hey.
Dudes and Patient Saints, and we coming up short, bro.
Crickets.
Hey,
Hey,
put
can
in
I-
your application for IUIC New Orleans. We need a sound man. We are accepting
Hey,
applications.
Kev, can I bring out something?
Of course.
It's gonna go right along with what you just said. This is the Britannica, all right. And I said something last week, and I wanted to get the proof. I said something about the institution of voting is geared to gauge the mentality of the country.
Right.
And Britannica is
right.
gonna show us that. Read that.
Functions of elections. Elections may be fundamental contribution to democratic governance.
So elections make a contribution to democratic governance. Now watch how it mess you up. Go ahead.
Because direct democracy, a form of government in which political decisions are made directly by the entire body of qualified citizens.
So a democracy is the government's political decisions are based on the people.
Right on some heads.
Read.
It's impartial,
Impractical.
impractical in most modern societies. Democratic governments must be conducted through representatives.
So they said democratic governments are impractical in most modern societies, and they must be conducted through representatives. So democracies must be republic.
Hey, you know what?
A democracy
Must
has
be
to be a republic.
Right.
That don't even make no sense.
Exactly.
No.
So look, a democracy has to be a republic, according to them.
So what the hell are people voting for?
Hey, I know we reading that word right. It says Democrat and democracy, but we need to start calling it demonocracy.
Democracy.
Yeah.
Because they're a bunch of demons.
Hey,
Watch.
but so you said that because I mean it's saying that the Democratic government but we are doesn't it say to the Republic?
To the
Yeah.
republic for which it
yeah.
stands.
Yeah.
It ain't
So-
say for which it changed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
For
Which it stands.
Read on elections.
Elections enable voters to select leaders and to hold them accountable for their performance in office.
Uh-huh.
Accountability can be undermined when elected leaders do not care whether they are reelected or win for historical or other reasons.
So they're saying we elect the presidents to hold them accountable. But you can't hold them accountable because you didn't elect them. Your representatives elected them.
Right. The
So,
electoral college.
Do they care about when they get reelected? No, they
No,
don't, because
no.
it's not up to
They don't give
you.
a damn.
Right.
It's not up to you whether they get reelected. Watch this, read.
One party or coalition is so dominant that there is effectively no choice for voters among alternative candidates, parties, or policies.
So one party or coalition is so dominant that you don't have a choice, whether Democratic or Republic, because we just read that no country can run on a democracy. The democracy has to be led by representatives, which is a republic.
Republic.
Go ahead.
Nevertheless, the possibility of controlling leaders by requiring them to submit to regular or periodic elections helps to solve the problem of succession in leadership and thus contributes to the continuation of democracy.
That's a lie. Read on.
Moreover, where the electoral process is competitive and forces candidates or parties to expose their records and further intentions to popular scrutiny. Elections serve as forms for the discussion.
Election service what?
Serve as forms for the discussion of public issues and facilitate the expression of public opinion.
So they're looking at where the mentality of the people is. That's
Right.
what elections are for. Read.
So hold on, officer. So is that why they have the DNC and the RNC?
Yes, the DNC, the
Oh,
RNC,
man.
the live debates. When you get these alerts on your phone, hey, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are starting to talk. Watch live.
Hey,
Right.
That acronym, make sure, because a lot of our people don't know what you did over their head. The DNC is the Democratic,
National Republic.
Convention.
Convention. Yeah.
and the RNC is the Republican National Convention. I was watching it just because I was eating. I think I was eating some chips, and I love watching Trump. So you sit there and watch him. They're spinning their understanding of how America entertaining for those of us who are enlightened, but there are people that, like Officer Matt said, this article is very heavy. They allow even these Republicans and Democratic voters to think that they're making a difference when they're only voting for the elected officials. So meaning they got an elite group
Right.
that is going to be the one who makes up who goes into office.
Right.
So, and our people, I mean, most of us know that, but when you really think about it, most black people really still believe that their voice counts.
Right.
It's a shame. This is a heavy article right here.
Hey, they said that the whole purpose of voting was to eliminate secession in leadership, right? George Bush was the 41st president. His son was the 43rd president.
Right.
That is secession.
Right.
That
Right.
is secession.
And when George Bush II was asked, was he concerned about losing?
He said no.
He said, "No, I'm not going to lose."
You know why? Because his daddy failed miserably, like to invade Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
What did his son do?
Oh, his son went in there.
They have weapons of
He
mass
got 'em.
destruction.
But to the officers,
And the boogeyman.
to Officer Solomon's point, again, I'm gonna show y'all secession in government. To Officer Solomon's point, the reason George W. Bush was not concerned about losing is his brother Jeb was governor of Florida, where
there
they
you go.
had the hanging chads and the miscount. Come on, y'all.
Hey,
come on.
Hey, you see the new postmaster? He said, "Look, man, we ain't putting mail sorting equipment back in the post office." He said, he should have just showed up with a damn Trump hat on." They said he's a Trump constituent, and people mail is late. Like they don't. I'm thinking my mail. I'm in the rural area. They don't have to change the mail car. Like they down to the second vehicle because it's taking so long to get the mail out.
Bruh.
Yep.
This is MAGA country.
We ain't putting no dang on sorting equipment.
Hey,
Hey.
scroll down. Right there, right there. Elections also.
Elections also reinforce the stability and legitimacy of the political community. Like national holidays commemorating common experiences, elections link citizens to each other and thereby confirm the viability of the polity. As a result, elections help to facilitate social and political integration.
Elections do
Do
what?
what?
Elections help integration.
Read that again.
Elections help integration. Just like sports, just like Thanksgiving, just like Mardi Gras, just like Mother's Day, Father's Day, and 4th of July, politics is a way to integrate everybody, a.k.a. to put everybody under the umbrella of America's mindset.
It says elections link citizens to each other. First of all, ain't nobody supposed to know who you voting for.
And then not only that, you go in there and look at the voters' registration. You don't even know who the hell the people are on the card.
Exactly,
You go
because
like,
you're
hold
not
on.
voting
I'm
for.
looking- you go in there, this Biden, Trump, everybody's name ain't even on the ticket.
That's a heavy article, man. I'll tell you right now, Officer Matt, this article right here, you really can take this article and you could do a whole show on this. If we get into the mindset and the psyche that think about the men that sat down to plan this.
Yep.
They sat down to plan these sporting events. How can I get all these black people to take their mind? I'll tell you what. I'll give them the NFL. I'll give them all these entertainment avenues. I'll give them television with 900 60 stations. I give them so much to take their mind off it. I'll give them the political platform where they think they're making a difference. All the while, the decisions are being made at a level where you don't even understand, at an elite level. And guess what? We're not supposed to even be caught up in this. That's why the show is, should you vote? Should the Israelites vote? And you know what? You're getting the answer now.
Hey, Cap, watch this. When Esau come up to you, there's 3 things that they try to talk to you about. And if you say no to those 3 things, the conversation goes nowhere.
It stops.
Did you watch the football game?
No.
No. Did you watch the basketball game?
Right.
No.
No. Are you voting?
No.
No. Conversation over.
Yep.
They have nothing else to talk to you about. If Esau can't talk to you about sports, there's
That's
no
it.
other conversation.
And then it says one nation under God. That's what the Pledge of Allegiance says, right? So what also Matthew, what you just break it out. It's been in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey, check this out. So I mentioned something earlier. This show was going by super fast. I was mentioning something earlier, right? Officer Matt said, I think 2 weeks ago, might have been last week, he mentioned, why is there the urban apologetics and regular apologetic? Why is there the Masons and then the Black Masons, right? So I want you to look at, because remember in 1965 they passed the Voters' Right Act that protected them, the rights to vote. And Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, they marched over the bridge, and we finally got the right to vote by Lyndon Johnson signed into law, something that was already law from 1868, which is ironic, right? Hypocritical at the least. Let's put up the video I have about the Black Caucus. So this, I'm going to take a step back. It was not called the Black Caucus at first. We're going to find out why did they have to come up with an organization like this if after 1965 everything was good. You got the right to vote. Now, Lyndon Johnson signed into office. Everything's equal now, right? This is why we had to create this. Again, it's wishful thinking at the best, but play on.
If you are born non-white in this country, you are born to a life of sacrifice. Are you prepared to fight for non-whites in position of power and decision-making on this campus?
The Black Caucus was the first group in the UC system to form and challenge administration to respond to certain kinds of demands.
The Black Caucus was a very important vehicle on this campus because of the prejudices
Stop
and the
real quick.
racism.
So the Black Caucus was set up to help black people, right? At a level, at a congressional level, right? But the proof that it's amazing. How come there's not a white caucus? You got to really go back to the basics. If after 1965, Lyndon Johnson put the right to vote act, and now it wronged the rights of all of that, getting sprayed by water hoses, sick by German shepherds, all of that. Now the no more lunch counter, no more color movie theater. Everything's good now, right? It's in law. Why then, after this 1965, does there have to be a Black Caucus to protect the rights of black people? Showing you that nothing changed even after 65. And if we keep going to today, why do we still have to get our rights to vote passed through? The protection of our right to vote still. That the Chinese man doesn't do, the white man doesn't do that. That, if they really believe that, they should have signed it once and never had to renew it again, right? Because we always have to be re-protected. That's what's really going on. You're hunted. You're politically hunted. All right, play on.
That prevailed during that period of time.
I don't think there was one person that would come to those caucus meetings that did not have a story to tell about racism and how they were being unfairly treated.
UCSF was known as the plantation on the hill because of the way it treated its employees, primarily those in the custodial service.
It takes an organization to move an organization. So why don't we organize? And that's pretty much the birth of the Black Caucus.
The very first Black Caucus meeting we had was, we had a big meeting in Cole Hall
And it's amazing how many people showed up. People in clerical positions showed up. People were in janitor's position.
And the first order of business was to issue this letter of demands.
Let's stop right there. So this is at a university in California, right? But I wanted to show you that even after, this is May 1968, right? So things did not change. They just re-circumvented everything. And what happened is that we had to keep fighting over and over again. We're going to finish this video out.
Some of the demands had to include increasing the staffing, but really our primary demand was to increase the number of students in the medical school.
We had to get people of color into the system and then retain them.
The idea was to create an environment that allowed blacks to excel.
And our work was cut out for us, and we took care of business. Our membership would tell us where the problems were. Investigation committee would go out and check that out.
Basically, we were there to monitor any discriminatory practices on the campus. And so
Let's stop
we
right there.
set.
So this is the Black Caucus of a college campus, right? So now we're going to show you at the congressional level, because there were these things. The Black Caucus was protection of black people's rights. We gave a list of demands, right? The same thing that Ice Cube was quoting about the list of demands in 2020. So here it is in 2020. They got this whole thing that we read earlier. They're still demanding things that they started to demand after 1965 because they wasn't getting what the white man promised them. It's amazing. So now let's go to the Congressional Black Caucus. This is at the Congress level. So let's read about this, and then we're going to ride out to this.
About the CBC. Since its establishment in 1971, the Congressional Black Caucus has been committed to using the full constitutional power, statutory authority, and financial resources of the federal government to ensure that African Americans and other marginalized communities in the United States has the opportunity to achieve the American dream.
Stop. So what happened is this. I want you to really understand what they're just talking about. If this was a righteous country, there would never have to be this. Black people realized that after 65, nothing's changing. All the brothers and sisters said this: we got to come together and make them enforce their own stuff. We're going to use our position to try. Now, were they going about it the right way? They weren't keeping the commandments. They weren't doing, but they had to organize, right? So check this out. Read on.
As part of this commitment, the CBC has fought for the past 48 years to empower these citizens and address their legislative concerns by pursuing a policy agenda that includes but is not limited to the following.
Because these are the problems that continue to exist after 1965. One of them is reforming the criminal justice system, prison to school pipeline, eliminating barriers to reentry, combating voter suppression. So all these things for the last 40 years after 1965, these things continue to happen. Now look at the fifth bullet. It says expanding access to 21st century technologies, including broadband. What you're going to find going forward, and Trump is right about one thing, all of the voting is going to move on to online, mark my words, and mail voting. They're going to go away from the barriers, and they're going to create these barriers for our people even on that. And then you're going to see in 15 years, you're going to see the same thing. It's going to be all the same thing, the suppression. It's going to keep going. All on just a new head for the dragon. Okay? So that I'll read this for your own. The point is, why do you need a Congressional Black Caucus if after 1965 everything was equal under Lyndon Johnson? 2020, Ice Cube quoted a black, what the hell was the name of the thing?
A contract with Black America.
A contract with Black America with more demands, demanding that the white man give us the things he promised us in 1865. You're never going to be equal in this country. You're never going to win in this country. The only thing, like Officer Matt said, keep the commandments. You quoted in Limitations, right? Stop, Israel. Stop. And you know what? Your family members, share this history with them. Show them how we had power to a certain extent politically in the 1870s when we rose up. We had 2,000, and they shut us down. They slammed us down. Okay, and then when we try to rise up, they hit with the water hoses. And I keep stressing over, you're never, ever going to get justice in this country. Ask the Native American man. You're never going to get it. Never going to get it.
It was crazy, Cap. Every 25 years, like you was bringing up, every 25 years, we have to re-vote for our right to vote. But I bet you sodomites ain't never going to have to vote for their right to get married or adopt children or anything like that. But we have to constantly redo this and redo this and redo this and redo this. They talking about sodomy is the new Negro. No. That's the same old Esau. That's what sodomy is.
So look, Israel, we getting ready to close out. Last couple of minutes of the show, and just remember this, Israel. We got a lot going on in IUIC. We have Officer Micah with the Watchman Report. Officer Mikael had us locked on what's going on in the body. And we also have Officer Matt closing out. He's our anchor man. He closing out. We're bringing us a little bit of hope. Tonight's show was a little angry. You get a little bit depressed when you hear the things we delved into. But there's a lot of things going on. Like when you go into the Kingdom Music, we're doing so many big things to uplift our people. It's amazing. So real quick, I want to give a shout out to the pioneers of IUIC radio shows, Patient Saints, the Lion's Dens, these brothers who had the first shows. Y'all brothers, man, support them, all right? Because we trying to be like y'all. We see the content. We see how the radio is being lifted to the different level. Y'all inspired us to change our camera angles up. We had one camera taking the whole doggone thing. We was like, listen. And we studied these other brothers. We said, these guys are on something. We got different, and now the brothers are new. They stepping their game up. We got a nice, we got a whole team back here, and we've got cues and this and that. And you know what? We're taking it to the next level. And the reason why is because the brothers that started and paved the way for us on IUIC radio show. So we thank you, brothers.
That's right.
Praise the Most High.
That's right.
Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless. This is Officer Matt with Kingdom Music. Look, we got a lot of artists in Israel, all right? A lot of y'all need to be working weekly, all right? A whole lot of people talk in that musicians chat. But not a lot of y'all be putting out music like talking about. So y'all might want to step y'all game up, all right? Especially those of y'all who that's your office to just make music. You know what I'm saying? So the first thing I want to say is Officer Enos out of Oklahoma. The brother done dropped a whole mixtape called Days. It's day 1 through 8, I believe it is. And trust me, the stuff is fire. The stuff is fire. 1 through 7. So he dropped a song for each day of the week. You know what I'm saying? So go check that out on SoundCloud. Enos is a core Days mixtape. It is definitely something that you could ride to, that you could vibe to. Hopefully they put some of that stuff on the next Hebrew Chill playlist from Original Royalty. All right. And the next song that we have from IUIC is Elrad. All right. And he has this Truth 3 single on SoundCloud called Me or You. And it has a Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu kind of feel to it. It's really smooth. It's jazzy. All right. Like we said down here in New Orleans, it's jazzy, bro. The thing jazzy. So check that out. Elrad on SoundCloud. All right. That is Officer Matthew with Kingdom Music.
So all praises to the Most High, Israel. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Precept Upon Precept. We had a show about should Israel vote, should black people, Hispanics, and should we vote in the system? And we've done 2 shows to show you the answer is no. Don't put your trust in the system. If you want to vote, man, vote to keep the commandments. Be
That's
that
right.
person to keep those commandments. That's your voluntary duty, man. Keep the commandments of God and the faith of Christ. So with that, any last words from the officers on the show before we get ready to ride out of here?
Just want to thank everybody for tuning in to Precept Upon Precept. This is news with a script.
Hey, look, if y'all really want to vote IUIC. Let's make keeping the commandments great.
That's
right. That's right.
Let's make black families great again.
That's right.
That's right.
Let's make marriage great again.
Yes, right.
Hey, in the words of Trump, what you got to lose?
Exactly.
IUIC,
What
baby.
you got to
Come
lose?
keep the commandments,
All
baby.
praises.
Let's go.
All praises. What you got to lose?
So with that, Israel, give alms.
Yeah. So, Israel, if y'all want to continue to see great shows like these, give alms. You can give alms to us here in New Orleans via PayPal at iuic.neworleans@israelunite.org. And once this pandemic is over, once these restrictions are over, our leadership is going to continue to push the truth throughout the 4 corners of the earth, and they need your support. So you can donate to the Booster Club at iuic.fundraising@israel